Hey everybody, this is Rykard here again, and welcome to a Pokemon Teams video featuring a balanced team that I've been using in the Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon UU tier currently on the Smogon Pokemon Showdown website with some pretty great success, as with this team I am currently ranked within the top 100 on the UU ladder. And as you can see from the screen right here, this team is going to be featuring Hippowdon, Stoutland, Sigilyph, Amoonguss, Magneton, and kommo-o. And this team as a whole really came together very easily for me, and in this video I'm going to be talking about exactly why I chose each of the Pokemon for this team, their different movesets, and their function on the team as a whole, so you can see how this team works really well together. So with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the first Pokemon in this video that I'm going to be talking about, which is going to be Hippowdon. So when this team was first starting to come together, I knew immediately that I wanted to use Hippowdon, mainly because this is a Pokemon that I personally have not used that much, but also because I was noticing that this Pokemon was able to function really well on a variety of teams that I was playing against while using some other teams before I came up with this one. So I was slowly realizing that Hippowdon was actually one of the best walls in the UU tier for a lot of different reasons, so I figured why not base a team around it. So to start things off for this moveset, I began with giving it an Impish Nature to increase its physical defense but lower its special attack, and then going with the Sand Stream ability, which has multiple uses on this team. The main one obviously being to set up sand, which slowly drains away your opponent's HP a little bit at the end of every turn, which is one of the main reasons why this is so good, but also to set up the sand for Stoutland, which is another Pokemon on this team that I'll be talking about in a little bit. As to the EV spread, it's a little bit weird, but 240 HP, 28 defense, 208 special defense, and 32 speed EVs gives this Pokemon some pretty significant bulk into its special defense and its physical defense along with the Impish Nature to allow this Pokemon to take hits very easily from a variety of opponents that it's going to be matched up against. And the 32 speed EVs allow this Pokemon to outspeed base 50 speed Pokemon that it would typically be outsped by because of its base 47 speed, which in a lot of situations also just results in Hippowdon being faster than other Hippowdon, which is very useful periodically when using this team. But the moveset of Stealth Rock, Earthquake, Toxic, and Slack Off is very standard. You set up hazards, you can status things with Toxic, and you have a stab option in Earthquake while being able to recover off damage with Slack Off. And this Pokemon can switch into a variety of different attackers in the tier, which is a really great thing because in the process of switching in, you not only set up the sand, but you also deal a little bit of chip damage in the process through the sand damage at the end of every turn, unless your opponent obviously is a Rock, Steel, or Ground type, or has Magic Guard. But for the item, Leftovers was the most obvious choice to allow this Pokemon to recover a little bit of HP at the end of every turn, and overall Hippowdon is just a great switch-in, as I mentioned before, to a lot of attackers and allows it to really get the team going and get a little bit of damage in the process. But your main goal obviously is to Toxic Stall with it, as well as set up hazards for your team to make use of. So soon after I established Hippowdon as the central member of the team, I wanted to make use of sand in a bit more of an offensive way. So I was looking for Pokemon with the Sand Rush ability and found that there are really only two that you could use in the UU tier, which are Stoutland and Sandslash. And because Sandslash is another ground type with virtually the exact same coverage that Hippowdon would have, Stoutland became the better option, primarily because it's faster and also because it has some more balanced defensive stats than Sandslash has, as it has some pretty good natural physical and special bulk, which does help out quite a bit. But for this particular set, I'm running a Jolly Nature to increase its speed but lower its special attack, going with the Sand Rush ability, which doubles your speed while sand is up in the battlefield, which you'll be setting up thanks to Hippowdon, and then an EV spread of 252 attack, 4 special defense, and 252 speed EVs to max out its physical attack and its speed stats. And what's also interesting about this particular version of the set is that most Smogon sets for Stoutland make use of an Adamant Nature. So by running the Jolly one, if I was ever matched up against another Stoutland, I know that mine would either outspeed or be able to at least speed tie with it, which hasn't happened yet, but would come in handy to have. But as for the moves, Frustration is our normal type stab of choice over Return, specifically when being matched up against a Pokemon like Ditto, which would normally have max happiness, so they wouldn't be able to do a ton of damage with Frustration, where they would be able to with Return, unless your Ditto is also running minimum happiness. So it's interesting when using this move just for that specific instance, and it has come into play, because it typically means that your opponent is just going to outright go for Superpower, which can then allow me to switch into a bunch of other things on this team to take that very easily. But for the moves, in addition to Frustration, obviously Superpower is there as a powerful fighting type coverage option, which does help out against a variety of steel types in the tier, as well as also running Ice Fang, really specifically for Dragon-type Pokemon, but more specifically for Gliscor, because it obviously is 4 times super effective against one of the most common walls in the tier. And then lastly, Pursuit, which is actually one of the most used moves on this set, because Pursuit allows you to trap so many different Psychic and also Ghost-type Pokemon that you might be matched up against in the tier. And while Sand is up on the battlefield, your opponent is more than likely to switch out because they'll know Stoutland will outspeed. So running Pursuit in that instance has nabbed me so many kills against Latiases and Gengars while using this particular Pokemon. But as for the item, I've changed it quite a bit over the course of using this Pokemon, and I haven't really found one that I feel is the best option yet. But the 3 options that I've used are Normalium Z with Frustration, a Choice Band to boost your physical attack while locking you into a move, which is a little bit of an issue sometimes if your opponent switches into something that can obviously take the attack that you're locked into, and then also running an Expert Belt as a way of allowing this Pokemon to deal a little bit more damage with super effective moves, which this Pokemon does pack quite a bit of versus the Pokemon in the tier. And overall, this Pokemon has just proved to be an excellent sweeper for the team, as well as just a great Pursuit trapper when I need it the most. Up next, I knew that I needed a Pokemon to support my team a little bit better, so I wanted something that could remove entry hazards and also really not be bothered by sand, and I was immediately drawn to Sigilyph because it has access to Defog now and also has access to the Magic Guard ability, which means that I don't take any damage from sand as well as really anything else other than a direct attack, which is extremely useful for a Pokemon like this because of its role on the team. So on the particular moveset that I'm running, I am running a specially defensive EV spread with a Calm Nature to increase its special defense but lower its physical attack, and the EVs having 208 HP, 252 special defense, and 48 speed, which gives it a significant amount of special defensive investment, while also giving it enough speed to outspeed Timid Primarina, which is a very common Pokemon in the tier that I've been running into constantly of recent. And with this speed investment, you can outspeed it by 1 point, I believe, which is very useful because it'll allow you to attack it before it's able to attack you. And running a specially defensive spread, you match up pretty well against it anyway. But for the moves, the first one that I'm going to be going with on this set is going to be Psycho Shift, which is going to be used in combination with the Flame Orb item to spread burns. And there are a ton of powerful physical attackers in this tier, and Psycho Shift really helps out against those as it allows you to cripple their offensive capabilities and thus allow another Pokemon on the team to take attacks from those Pokemon a lot more easily. And as mentioned before, because Hippowdon is there to obviously be kind of a mixed wall, and I also have a Moongus, which I'm going to talk about in a little bit, this proved to be an essential move. And a really interesting thing to also keep in mind when using this is that you actually can beat Muck by just Psycho Shifting a burn onto it, and then therefore take the knockoff and just roost off damage until it dies from burn, which is something very interesting to keep in mind. But for Defog, obviously that is the move to remove hazards. It's going to be essential, and the great thing about Sigilyph is that it can switch in if Stealth Rocks are up, but not take any damage from them because of Magic Guard. And then Air Slash was really just the main attacking option. Getting flinches from it is really nice here and there, but it's not really why you use it. It's just the best offensive option, because there's a bunch of Dark types in the tier, so running Psychic or Psyshock really wasn't that great. And then Roost obviously is there to heal up your HP and allow this Pokemon to retain its bulk throughout the battle and survivability. And this Pokemon matches up especially well against a lot of special attackers, but also a lot of defensive Pokemon in the tier as well, because they can't Toxic Stall it, because I have a Flame Orb and I don't take damage from Toxic anyway, and also because I am a Flying type, which a lot of defensive walls in the tier just happen to be Pokemon that typically pack Earthquake and really no other coverage option other than that. So Sigilyph just was a great Pokemon all around to spread status, remove hazards, and to switch in on special attackers to really support my team and keep it healthy for a long time by making it so that they don't have to take hazard damage when they switch in. Up next, after establishing Sigilyph for a bit more team support, I knew that I needed to build upon my team's offensive capabilities a bit more. So I needed a Pokemon that could not only possibly switch in safely to a variety of attacks, but also be able to deal with some very common Pokemon that I kept running into in the UU tier. And Magneton turned out to be the perfect Pokemon for that job, thanks to its Steel-Electric typing, which allows it to resist a lot of different moves, but also because of its Magnet Pull ability, which allows this Pokemon to trap opposing Steel types, of which there are quite a few that are very common in the UU tier, but mostly Scizor, which was a Pokemon that a lot of my other teams was having a bit of an issue dealing with. So Magneton is basically there to kill Scizor pretty much, and also just be a powerful offensive special attacker for this team. But for the set in particular, I'm running a Timid nature to boost its speed while lowering its physical attack, and an EV spread of 252 special attack, 252 speed, and also 4 special defense to max out its special attack and speed. And then I ran a Choice Scarf on it to boost its speed further while locking it into a move to give it a bit more of an offensive presence and allow it to outspeed more things that it normally would be able to outspeed. But for the moves, Thunderbolt and Flash Cannon are your main stab, electric, and steel type options. Nothing crazy about that. You could possibly run Discharge if you want a greater chance to paralyze opponents, but the damage that you lose from that is a little bit significant in terms of specific matchups, so I wouldn't necessarily go with it, but it is an option. But specifically, we're going to be running Hidden Power Fire as our third attack on the set, which is what you use to kill Scizor. Now, the other thing on this particular moveset, though, that you need to keep in mind is that Hidden Power Fire is only stronger than Thunderbolt or Volt Switch when you're using it against a Pokemon that is 4 times weak to Fire-type moves. So if you're going to bring in Magneton in a Pokemon like Klefki or Mega Aggron or something like that, which are also common UU Pokemon, you're going to want to use Thunderbolt or Volt Switch instead of Hidden Power Fire, because Volt Switch does the same damage as Hidden Power Fire, and Thunderbolt is stronger. So keep that in mind. This is actually really interesting to point out, though, that if you do switch a Magneton on one of those Pokemon, you can actually freely Volt Switch out into something else because you're just trapping them so they can't switch out and deal a little bit of chip damage in the process. Also, a really interesting thing that happened periodically that I'll just make you aware of is that I will often be able to switch in Magneton on a Pokemon like Klefki, just kill it while it attempts to just set up hazards, then switch into Sigilyph to remove the hazards. So that's something also to keep in mind when using this particular team. But Volt Switch, as always, is there to allow you to just weave in and out of battle very easily, and it's a great option for a Pokemon that is choice locked, especially with a Choice Scarf, because you can outspeed a bunch of things and deal a little bit of chip damage in the process. Next, while realizing that Magneton was an amazing Steel Trapper, I also was realizing that it's very unlikely that you're just going to be able to easily switch in Magneton on a Scizor, because they're either going to expect that and go for Superpower, or try to U-turn out. So I needed another Pokemon on this team that could prevent that from happening, but also support my team a little bit more defensively, because there are a ton of offensive water types in the UU tier. And Amoonguss turned out to be the perfect Pokemon to deal with those water types and also support Magneton in its ability to Steel Trap things. So for this particular set, and to kind of make known how you do this, you run an eject button, because when your opponent tries to U-turn on you with Scizor, for example, the eject button activates and actually cancels out U-turn, and then you could just switch into Magneton and trap the Scizor, which is really cool. This item also has a lot of other very interesting applications for this team, which allow you to switch into some other Pokemon more easily and set up, or just damage them safely while just having Amoonguss be able to switch in the process. But this item is just really cool to use in combination with a Pokemon that has the Regenerator ability, which is going to be recovering my health every time I switch out. And Amoonguss is a great wall just for that reason in general. But for this particular set, I'm running a physically defensive one, so I'm giving it a Bold Nature to boost its physical defense but lower its physical attack, and running an EV spread of 208 HP, 252 defense, and 48 speed EVs to allow this Pokemon to outspeed base 35 speed Pokemon it wouldn't normally outspeed, and also other Amoonguss, while also giving it just a significant investment into its physical bulk. But the moves, obviously Spore is going to be there because that's why you use Amoonguss, to easily put stuff to sleep. And then Giga Drain and Clear Smog were great options as well to allow this Pokemon a way of dealing with potential setup sweepers, while also allowing it to recover health more easily because we're not running leftovers on the set. Keep that in mind because of the eject button. But as for the last move on the set, I was actually using 3 different options, each with their own amount of success. One being Gastro Acid, which is very interesting and basically suppressing your opponent's ability, which is particularly funny when you use this against a Poison Heal Gliscor, as it means that Gliscor then actually takes damage from toxic poisoning. But it's a really cool move in general, just because it can potentially allow you a little bit of a better option against a variety of things you're matched up against, if they have an ability that augments their offensive capabilities or defensive ones, so that's pretty cool. But Hidden Power Ice is good against Gliscor as well, and Hidden Power Fire is also a good against opposing Grass-type Pokemon, such as other Amoonguss, and also other Steel types. If my Magneton gets lost at some point in the battle, if I played incorrectly, you could have had Hidden Power Fire and Amoonguss to deal with something like Scizor. So all of these moves in combination with each other really have worked in their individual instances, and again, I don't know which one is better, but I know that they all do work. But having Amoonguss around specifically for things like Azumarill with Belly Drum and also Mega Sharpedo was incredibly useful because it allowed this Pokemon to basically wall them very easily while being able to deal a lot of damage in the process. Finally, for the last Pokemon on this team, I realized that I didn't have anything yet that could set up and sweep when given the opportunity, and after looking around for a bit, I realized that kommo-o is actually an amazing setup Pokemon in the UU tier, despite itself being an RU Pokemon, but I feel like that might change soon enough because I feel like other people are slowly realizing this as well. But kommo-o, with its great typing and stats, allow it to set up against a variety of attackers in the tier extremely easily and basically sweep teams when given the opportunity. So for this particular set, we're starting by giving it a Jolly Nature to boost its speed but lower its special attack, and going with the Bulletproof ability, which is going to be useful to allow this Pokemon to be immune to certain attacks that your opponents might pack, such as Shadow Ball and Focus Blast. And while this Pokemon does have access to the Overcoat ability, it really isn't as useful because even though we are running Sand and Overcoat would block the damage from Sand, Bulletproof just comes in handy way more often. For the EVs though, we're going to put 252 into its physical attack, 4 into its special defense, and 252 into its speed stat to max out its physical attack and speed to make this a powerful, physically offensive sweeping set. And for the item, we're actually running leftovers on the set to allow it to recover a little bit of HP at the end of return, which even on a more offensive set like this is actually extremely useful, especially also because the first move on the set is Substitute, which is going to be removing some of our health to make a substitute that will shield us from attacks and statuses while we attempt to set up. And this Pokemon can set up against so many things and get a free sub up against a variety of attackers, especially because this Pokemon having its great defensive stats will make it actually very difficult for your opponents to even break the sub unless they pack a powerful attack. And along with this, we're going to be running Dragon Dance to be our main setup move of the set to boost our physical attack and our speed stats by 1 stage. We're using this over Autotomize or Belly Drum just because this really allows the Pokemon to be as offensive as possible and also allows it a great way of being able to outspeed a lot of things in the process of also boosting its physical attack stat. It's also important to keep in mind that more often than not, you are going to try to get at least 2 Dragon Dances just because Scarf Hydreigon and Scarf Latias are very common and you won't outspeed them with just 1 Dragon Dance. So do keep that in mind, but the type combination of Drain Punch and Ice Punch allows this Pokemon to just really rip through teams that don't have a resist to either of these attacks in combination with each other. And there are quite a few Pokemon that do resist Drain Punch and Ice Punch, but the interesting thing about that is that this team is actually designed so that you can handle those very easily. So if you're thinking like, oh, Azumarill will be resisting both of those moves, well, that's what Amoonguss is for. And if you think, like, oh yeah, you could run into Doublade, well, that's what Magneton is for, to Steel Trap that and kill it. So this type combination works amazingly well with this particular team, and not only allows Pokemon to stay healthy through the use of Drain Punch, but also just easily clean up once it's able to set up. And like I said before, this Pokemon can set up on so many different things and be an amazing sweeper for your team. More often than not, I basically win because of kommo-o, despite the other things that this team can do. So I really highly recommend, if not using this team, just using this particular kommo-o set because it's just so good in the UU tier. But as a whole, this rounds out the team and gives it a much stronger offensive presence, while also allowing it to, as I said before, sweep when given the opportunity. So that is it for this team overview, everybody. So thank you all for watching. I hope you give this team a try. I'm going to post a link in the description to where you can go ahead and import this team into Pokemon Showdown yourself to try it out. And also, just let me know what you think of this team and if you would love to see me do more videos like this, because I really do enjoy making teams videos as much as I make set videos as well for specific Pokemon, as this allows you to really see how they work in combination with each other more easily. But that is it, everybody, so as always, take care, goodbye, and I will see you all next time.